topic of the conference is Future is Now. Yeah. And as we both know, the world has evolved. Not evolved, I think. It's completely disrupted, especially in the last 6 months. And our world is getting even more and more complex. All the rules doesn't apply. All the formulas doesn't work. So what is your take on that? That's what I want to discuss. But before I jump to that, I want to know about you. I don't know much about you.
Okay, so what I'll do is I'll send you, I recently had a long chat with a couple of people, give my background. I also, you know, I promised the Delhi schools that I'd talk to their students, and I just finished, I mean, not a week or so ago, I finished that conversation with the high school kids in Delhi and in Chennai, in Madras. I'll send those links to you after this call. But bottom line, you know, I am an electronics engineer from IIT2020, graduated in 1970. Stayed back in India, quite unlike a lot of my batchmates. I joined DCM as a senior management trainee. I was with them 5 years. Basically, was lucky that they decided to get into electronics a year after I joined them. And I was one of, if not the only, one of the few electronics engineers in the company at that time. DCM, Delhi Cloth and General Mills Company Limited, was the 4th largest private sector company in India. It was public. Revenue-wise, it was the 4th largest in India at that time. Conglomerate, textiles, of course, rayon tire cord, fertilizers, vanaspati, food, chemicals. So they made a whole lot of things. And they decided to, yeah.
I know very well. Okay. What I want to know is your early part of your childhood. What is really formidable? What really, because you and me both know there is a lot of things happen in our childhood, which we carry those values, those systems, those things we learn. Would you mind talking about that?
No, sure. So basically, I was born in Calcutta, brought up in Calcutta. My mother was, I should say, a doctor from Calcutta Medical College, but a teaching medical doctor. She decided not to practice, but to go into teaching. And so she was in what they call preventive and social medicine, which is really family planning, public health, hygiene, all this malaria, you know, epidemic eradication, that kind of stuff. And my dad was in the army. Spent a lot of time with my maternal grandparents. My grandfather, actually, he's sort of my hero. My maternal grandfather, he was a fairly well-known scientist, president of Indian Science Congress in 1954. At the time I was born, he was the director of the Indian Museum in Calcutta. So I spent a lot of time at the museum. I mean, I used to come there from school and spend most of the day there.
Beautiful museum. I was there in 87, 88. I still remember watching, I don't know if you remember, they had this video conferencing kind of thing using the mirrors. Right. I remember that. I still remember when I look at this, what we are having. It was like a dream 30 years ago.
Yep. Yeah. No, I was born in the museum. You know, kids were born at yeah. So there's a big building inside. It was Warren Hastings Court of Sadr Diwan, as they say. And that was the director's residence. So I was actually, technically I was born in a museum. I have never lived that down. I tell people that. But yeah, 7 years in Calcutta. And actually, really, in some ways, I am who I am because I used to go with my grandfather. He used to go for walks around Victoria Memorial, which is right next door, every morning. And he'd be talking whatever scientific stuff with his colleagues. And I'd be holding on to his little finger and he'd tell me 2 + 5, 3 + 8, you know. So by the time I went to nursery and kindergarten, I had my math. So I used to get thrown out of math class as a disruptive influence. And I was sent to Bible knowledge at that time from Loreto House and then St. Xavier's, Calcutta. But my dad moved to Delhi in 1956 when I was 7. And then I was in Columbus here for 4 years. And then he got called up for the 62 war. And my mother got a postdoctoral kind of fellowship to come to the Harvard School of Public Health. So both the kids went off into boarding school. So I went to Doon, did my last 4 years at Doon School in Dehradun. And then from there, I went to IIT Kharagpur. So that's basically, but I think the big influences in my life, of course, my grandfather, my mother, and, a couple of teachers at Doon. Doon had this very strong mountaineering, out of the 5 members of the Alpine Society in India at that time, 3 were teachers at Doon School. One of our teachers, Holdsworth, had actually climbed Mount Kamat, the second highest peak in India, which at that time was the world's highest point someone had reached. And he actually smoked his pipe on top and skied down from the top. So, we had Harry Dang, who lost his toes on Everest. We had Gurdal Singh. So there were a number of people there who came in. Also, one of our history teachers was a guy called Arthur Hughes. He was a ICS person. He was a commissioner of Bengal during the famine. Wow. And so, lots of stories, lots of things. I remember my math teacher very vividly, a gentleman called O.P. Malhotra, who wrote a number of books that were part of the CBSE curricula later. But he used to take our math class in our senior years. And I still remember he used to give the test and go away. And a lot of people used to cheat. And I used to try and be honest because I thought, math. And sometimes you make careless mistakes. So you get less marks than people who cheated and sort of got. So after I got to know him once, I still remember I asked him, I said, sir, when you give a test, you leave it and go away. Aren't you worried that people will cheat? So he looked at me and he said, who are they cheating? And I've never forgotten that in my life. So
that's a great story. I'm sure that's a great story for our audience too.
Yeah. So those were good formative years. I mean, I still am friends with a number of people in Doon, a number of my friends from there, as I am with a number of friends I made at college. I went to IIT Kharagpur because I wanted to do electronics. All the IITs had electrical engineering. Kharagpur had 2 separate departments, electrical and electronics and electrical communication engineering. I figured there had to be something different, which is why I chose IIT Kharagpur, much against my grandmother's wishes, because she felt I'd spent 4 years at Doon away from home. Now I'd spent 5 years in college away from home. And she wasn't very comfortable with that, basically. But yeah, no regrets. I enjoyed my 5 years at college, made a lot of friends. In fact, ended up marrying the sister of a very good friend of mine, who's now a professor at MIT in the US. And that's a story too, because like everyone, I was coming abroad. I just had no intention of staying in India. I wanted to do my PhD in the Bay Area, probably Stanford or Berkeley, and I wanted to then work with NASA on satellite control systems. That was and I was clear, unlike a lot of other people, I was clear that's what I wanted to do. I still remember my mother sent me a cutting for a DCM senior management trainee job. And I'm a sucker for logic in a way. There was a line in it I've never forgotten. It said, interviews are like exams. The more you do, the better you are at them. And just to acknowledge that logic, I filled up the form and I sent it. And then when I landed up at Delhi, friends of mine said, they wanted to do the test, come along with me kind of thing. So I went and did the test. My interview was one day before theirs. They said, yeah, just go check kya question puchte hain. So I went and did the preliminary interview. And then I get a telegram saying, come for the final interview. So you think of it, some 12,000 people apply. They're going to take 10, 12 people. So it becomes an ego issue. You're down to the last 30. You say, hey, can I do this or not? So I get the job. I get a telegram, 950 rupees. And my father is in Calcutta at that time, and he sends me a message saying, it took me 10 years to get a 4-figure salary kind of thing.
Which year?
And in the meanwhile, sorry?
Which year?
This is 1970.
Wow. That must be a lot of money.
Oh, yeah. It was a lot of money. And I was staying in Delhi. I was going to be at home. So that saves, a lot of money too. What happened is I talked to my then to-be father-in-law and said I wanted to get married before I went to the US. I was still keen to go to the US. he told me, he had a bit of a laugh. He said, I can't get my daughter married to someone who doesn't have a confirmed job.
Okay.
So I always say that's how I became an entrepreneur. I decided, let me take the DCM job. Let me work for a year. I'll get confirmed a year later. I checked with Stanford. They said they'll keep the admission open, but I'll have to reapply for aid. My GRE scores were pretty good. I wasn't too worried about aid. So I decided I'll stay back, get confirmed, get married, then come and do my PhD. Once you're married, then no one says anything. And that's what I did. I got married right away, but then DCM got into electronics, and I was called up by the executive director concerned. And he said, basically, you've got to handle R&D and production or sales and marketing, depending on who we can find in the market. So they found someone from ITI, a gentleman called SD Money, who took over the technical part. So I got into sales and marketing. And you think about it, 1 year out of college, you're handling national sales for a completely new product in a big company, in a subject area where no one understands what you're saying, if you use technical terms, at least from the management side. And so I leveraged that a little bit. Every time I'd get into a discussion, I'd tell them, no, there's a Darlington pair there, and this happens, that happens. And, people would sort of back off and say, yeah, it probably is a technical thing. This guy will know. But yeah, that gave me great experience. And of course, DCM was early into calculators. They were one of the pioneers. In fact, it was early at Silicon Valley also.
Oh, really?
Chips were just coming out. Yeah. So Johnson had broken up NASA, and he let all these engineers go, and they started these garage operations to make chips. And so before our first calculator came out, we went through 3 sets of chip companies that sent us chips. We made the calculator, they went bust, etc., etc. And DCM picked up about an 80+% market share.
Wow.
It was a small, in a 250 crore company, we were 1.72 crores. But out of that, 72 lakhs was profit.
Wow.
And we built a strong R&D. So what we did was, instead of just selling, initially it was a standard chipset. We then started adding some EPROMs with some microcode on them, so that for markets like statistics, I gave a single key regression, mean, median, which no one else had. And so I could price it at a premium and sell it as a proprietary article to government departments and labs and stuff. So very profitable operation.
So Arjun,
we made, sorry.
No, sorry, Amin.
Yeah, no. So we made programmable calculators, and then microprocessors started coming out. We had bit slice chips. So we made a computer actually, and we told DCM, let's take it to market. Now, those days, India was a socialist country, and we had an act called the Monopolies and Restrictive Trade Practices Act, where large private sector companies were not allowed to get into new areas. And if you ever worked with a large company, lawyers' jobs there is to tell you how you can't do things. No, right? And that was typical with DCM. So their legal department said, don't get into computers, you'll run afoul of the government. And why do you want to, you've got a large part of the company will get threatened by this really small thing. How does it matter? And so they, in their wisdom, decided not to look at computers or get into computers. And so I was 25, 26 years old. We sort of decided that a number of us, 6 of us actually in that division, decided that, 2 things. One is you don't see the end of your life at that age. And B, we thought microprocessors were going to change the world. We really believed that. And so we said, let's go out and do it on our own. Now, no business plan, no money, just that we knew the market, or we thought we knew the market.
MP was with you at that time, right?
Sorry?
MP Singh was with you. Mahendra
MP Sorry, I didn't hear it.
MP Singh was with you.
Yes, Mahendra Pratap, yeah. He actually was with us in DCM and R&D. And in fact, I just spoke to him yesterday. And then he went and joined a company called Alpha Electro, because the Times of India people, Manoj Jain, the youngest kid, actually did a lot of good work. They just didn't support him. He actually had a computer before we did, but because he took a lot of people out of HCL R&D. Half those people went off to Australia. They're still there. and MP stayed back. And so when initially we traded in calculators to make money that we could invest in developing computers. I think it took us 3 months. We started in October 75. By January 76, we decided we had money to invest in R&D. So we recruited 2 people, one guy from HCL who was the head of R&D there, late Dr. S. Raman, and MP. They were our first 2 engineers. And both of them were given some equity at that time.
Yeah,
so MP technically was a founder equity holder in HCL.
Wow, I didn't know that. He told me this story when the HCL was formed. It's just phenomenal. I was doing a company and he was involved. It was really a lot of fun hearing all this. So the question, Arjun, I have is, the big question I have is, which of your childhood story, so because there are certain things happen in our childhood which drives us. And I can see that your Nana had a huge influence on you. But one of those stories I think will be very relevant for our audience is which constantly drives you. So something happened because you have seen so much up and down. I'm following you for last almost 15, 16 years and so many things. The world is not perfect, you know that. And that's the beauty of the word, in my opinion. So any story you would like to share with our audience?
Well, nowadays we are not supposed to put pressure on our kids or our grandkids, right? I keep telling my wife that you guys, I keep telling my kids, you guys have no idea what pressure really means. So when I was growing up, my grandmother made it clear to me that my grandfather was a gold medalist at Lahore, Government College, Lahore. My mother was a gold medalist in her medical college. And that, obviously the expectation was you have to follow that tradition. And, for a long time, in fact, when I did my IIT entrance exam, I got my results. I was 32nd in India. My grandmother nearly threw me out of the house because she said it's a double-digit rank. No one in this family has ever got a double-digit rank. We had no idea at that time what it meant. But I never shared it with anyone because I was ashamed of my rank at that time. Wow. I thought, it's only later when you go for interview and you see all these people and they say, wow, and stuff, and you say, okay, I must have done well. But so, I sort of redeemed myself when I got the Dr. B.C. Roy gold medal at Kharagpur. So I still remember that was the proudest moment for my grandmother, that yes, someone continued the tradition, quote unquote. It didn't matter what the gold medal was for. It was just that it was a gold medal. But that pressure, I don't know how to describe it, but subconsciously, while my parents, my mother, my father never did that, my grandmother made it very clear that is what was expected. And, in a way, you had to live up to it. In fact, the other thing I remember is my father was in Calcutta with Indian Airlines at that time because P.C. Lal had pulled the army people into Indian Airlines after the strike. And I was in India. I went to Kharagpur for my convocation. And, Kharagpur is 72 miles from Calcutta. And I asked my dad if he was coming. And I still remember he said he had a meeting or something. And he said, son, when you do something I don't expect, then I'll come. It's like, that was the only time I figured that he had an expectation too. Right? He had never said it before that.
Oh, Daddy.
Yeah. Those were different days. But it's, I think, in school, I can't think of anything in Columbus. Yes, there were nice teachers and, it was there. My dad was a little clearer about what he wanted. He felt, and my dad felt that you must play sports, at least team sports, because that develops a kind of personality where you accept losing, you know how to work with the team, stuff like that. So I ended up playing a lot of, and I unfortunately didn't play any individual sports. I did play badminton, but no tennis and, that kind of stuff. So technically, when so I played basketball for IIT, and actually in my final year, we won the East Zone Inter-University Championship. and so we went to Indore and got thrashed by Bombay, Bangalore, and Punjab universities, which came from the other three zones. But the fact that IIT Kharagpur was representing the East was something. But three of us from the IIT Kharagpur team got picked for the Bengal basketball team for the nationals, and the nationals were in Calcutta. So we were there. We played some of the games, and then when I joined DCM at the Kota plant at the Shriram Rayon's Kota, DCM had three of India's 5 people start on a basketball court. Three of the starters used to work with Shriram Rayons, Khushiram, Hanumant Singh, and Manu. And so when I joined there as a management trainee, I was staying at the guest house. So I went there because I played with them in Calcutta a year ago. And I thought I'd practice, keep my basketball skills up. And, I'd learn from them. I did that a couple of days, and then I got called by the general manager HR of the unit. And I was told, I still remember, he told me, officers don't play with employees. And these people were security guards, that kind of thing in Shriram Rayons. And I tried to tell him that they represent the country, it's a different level. But no, that was the way things were looked at in those days. So I just got so fed up, I stopped playing altogether. Said, hey, if this is the attitude, then I'm not going to, do this kind of thing. But yeah, those were different days, completely different days.
So Arjun, I have a couple of questions for you. So one in particular is very critical, is our future has changed. What do you recommend to our audience they should be doing? Because you have seen it in last almost 4-5 decades, I'll say, and you started multi-billion-dollar company. You are part of a lot of large corporation, 2 small startups, like starting a company in a garage. What do you recommend? How we should really think so we can see the future and we can plan for our future?
So the key right now is you can't see the future. It's changing every day. We have no idea how this COVID thing is going to go, whether a vaccine will come, how effective it will be, But, some things are quite clear that, let's talk about commerce. Let's say retail is going to go online and is going to go contactless. So we know that shift is going to happen. Right. Similarly, if you look at industries, there's some industries that are going to get big advantage from here, right? AR, VR, for example, AI, online learning. So those are going to suddenly grow very quickly. There are some industries where there's going to be major change. They are going to grow, but they're going to grow with major change. And the best example is education and healthcare, right? Healthcare, if you look at the statistics, online used to be 6%. Now it's 44%. It'll probably come down when the pandemic goes away, but it's there to stay. Once people know it's going to happen that way, they'll be more comfortable. In a way, you force them to quickly adapt to this. And then there are industries that have to re-engineer themselves completely. Hospitality, hotels, restaurants, public transport. They've just got to look at themselves completely differently and see what they've got to do. And of course, everything is an opportunity. If I'm in a hotel, if let's say whatever market comes back, if I can take a bigger share than what I have today, what do I have to do that? And you have to think, and as you mentioned, innovation is going to be the key. Innovation, not new products, but how you deal with what you have already, I think is going to be the key. And that, so just take education, where I've done a little thinking. So the minute people are comfortable with online, say higher education, let's take a small segment of education.
Yeah.
If people are comfortable with higher ed being done from home and online, right, 2 things happen. One is, why am I paying all those heavy fees? Parents are going to ask that question. Second is, I don't have to pay hostel and food and all. I'm staying at home.
Yeah.
Third is, I will have to go at some stage for labs and stuff. There's some things that you can't do online. Fourth is, what stops an MIT, a Harvard, or an IIT to have 2 million students online? Right now, they're limited by capacity of their campus. But once you're online, you're not limited. So what will smaller universities do? What do they go? Why would someone go to a smaller university to get a degree, online degree, if I can get it from Harvard or Oxford or Cambridge or MIT or IIT. So it's going to change the way things work, right?
Sure.
Second is, if online catches on, and it's a big thing, then why do I have to make the online content with US professors? Like IT shifted to countries like India, India can make the online content for you,
Sure.
right? Our professors here can do it. So you might see that kind of tectonic shift of things happening. And the other thing, look at how it's going to affect the family. So kids are going to stay with the family through college. Most of them don't today. Second is the father, the mother, if they're working, the kids each will need some kind of space to do their work, some level of privacy. So you're going to want bigger houses.
True.
Right. So, just think of, you got to look at what your industry is, you got to think of the impact it's going to have, and you got to think of what it could happen, and then say, what do I do if this becomes the environment? What do I have to do? What's going to change? What are the opportunities it throws up?
So
Right.
Arjun,
I just gave a small example of one segment that if you go, dig into it in a little more detail.
so Arjun, let's talk about education, because that's very, very important in today's context, especially what is the relevance of IIT or any Ivy League college? All the education is on YouTube. And why do I need a degree? Because if you really look at it in the workforce today, most of the software engineers, they don't have any formal education in software. I will say almost 50 to 60% software engineers who are highly successful, they have zero background in software. In fact, most of us from even IIT, we had different background. I'm a civil engineer, and I got an opportunity to be in GIS long time ago in India, and that has changed my life. I was working with the first GIS company in India and designed the first automatic vehicle location system of Singapore, Asia, and all that. I just got lucky breaks. But the big thing is, none of the education I have taken in my undergrad or master's program is directly relevant. And education is now completely changing. So where do you see, as an institution like IIT, should focus on?
So what you're saying is very valid, that look, your specialization in civil engineering, you hardly ever used that specialization because you moved into a field where that wasn't really required. But if you look at engineering, what were you taught? Technically, you were taught how to solve a problem. You were taught that when you're given a problem, if it's got lots of variables, you reduce it to the fewer variables that are important and then solve it. That's really the technique of what you were taught, what I was taught at IIT. I think two things. One is how to address a problem. I mean, don't get scared by the large number of variables. Try and look at and optimize. You can't always have a full solution. Number one. And the second thing I was taught at IIT is how to survive in an environment where people are smarter than you.
Exactly. So I was coming to that, Arjun. So the big thing I learned in IIT especially, I still remember a course, Professor Dumir was our plates and shell bending professor. He gave us an assignment and none of us could solve even a single question. So one night he said that you have to submit it tomorrow. So three of us, we said, okay, we are going to do night out. We are sitting in Shivalik Hostel. Three of us spent whole night solving 9 questions. Together, we were able to solve 7. So what I learned, very interesting, which is when people ask me this question, is that the collaborative learning is so important for our own growth. And that structure only a university like IIT can provide, one. Second is curiosity. Challenging yourself doesn't happen in a typical course, because if you are on a YouTube or a Coursera or any other program, there is nobody's challenging you. You're good. And the environment today is such that nobody wants to question anyone. So, which is even sad. So we were really pushed. So a point I'm trying to make it is that collaborative learning is missing. And both of my kids are in college. They just started college. And one goes to NYU, one in Babson, great colleges, great programs. But it's sad to see these kids, especially this year, they are not having that collaborative learning experience. And without that, the relevance of these institutions is diminishing. I don't know what technologically we can do. I don't know what IIT can do, but I do see maybe there is a room for a new kind of IIT. And one idea we were talking in our IIT2020 conferences, is there a possibility that all IITs combined create some unique programs which they can't even offer today because they have different faculties and they can't work together? Can we think that? And can we allow students anywhere they are, because they don't have to travel? So I am from Kanpur, but I'm going to IIT Delhi. I don't need to come to IIT Delhi. I can go and attend classes in Kanpur. So some unique thinking is required to create that collaborative learning and have that experience where you are continuously being challenged and you get inspired by other students too. What do you think about that?
What you're saying is actually going to be applicable to industry also.
Oh.
You know, today the way we are structured in industry is silos. I think in the new normal, which is what people call the new normal, I think you're going to be not, organization charts will no longer be siloed, there'll be teams. Because what's happening right now with this online thing is teams are working together. You know, you're making a team, it doesn't matter who he reported to or she reported to, you know, and that is working really well. I'm the chairman of this company called Magic Software that does education content, digital content.
Is it like Baidu?
Sorry?
Is it like Baidu?
No, not Baidu. Baidu produces content. We actually take physical books and convert them to content and stuff. But our real specialization is what is called accessibility. So something like 20-25% of the kids in the US have some learning disability, visual, hearing, ADHD, something. And the content that's available to schools has to be adapted so that they can use it effectively. That's called accessibility. There's standards. So we are sort of experts on doing, as you know, certifying. And if you don't meet it, we can help you change it and stuff like that. And so, you know, again, it was part of, one wanted to do something that makes a difference, not, you know, content everyone does. So in a way, yeah. So it's a nice niche. We do really well. We have big publishers like Pearson and all, where we are exclusive with them to do this and stuff like that. So it's a nice, it's a $15-20 million company, but very profitable, doing really well. So, you know, but yeah, it's so that is it is, you know, as you said, these are things that are happening. And yes, our generation doesn't know how to do a lot of things, but the millennials and the new generation, they're so used to doing it on their phones. For them, friendship is very different. For us, friendship was you put your arm around someone, you call him yar, you have, you know, you're both sort of quasi broke, you know, you're something. For them, that is friendship. And so attitudes are changing, things are changing, you know, and how they will see education going forward, how we saw it, what we feel they'll miss, you know, they'll find a way to adapt. And there are lots of issues coming up. What social media has done is that made friends on Facebook, whereas you may never have met this person in your life in a way. And you know, it's a very different model to what we look at. I mean, for me, when I do friends, and I don't do Facebook, but if I did friends on Facebook, it would just be a world. But when I do friends in school that I did in school, college, or outside, I have to give a part of myself to them. I have to be available for them in a way. Then only can I say I'm a friend.
You have to invest in that partnership or friendship. Yeah. And Facebook is followers; those are not friends. But you know, that's for some other day. So now, technically, as a chair, I should be answering this question. But since you're on our board, I'm going to ask this question from you. Why should anybody attend IIT 2020?
Okay, two reasons. One is networking, of course. That it's a big networking event. It used to be, at least when physically people went in. I think second thing used to be you could get a lot of your batchmates and friends to come in, and so you would have your own adda and do whatever you were doing. But I think the third important thing is that you learn from people, right? You learn from people who are alumni, at least I'm talking for alumni and for other people. See, one thing we've got to accept that IIT does get smart people, intelligent people. The alumni has done fairly well. They've actually, to a large extent, built the reputation of the IITs, right? So they are going to share their views. They're going to share their experiences. I think you come there for that learning. You come there for that learning. You come there for some level of connect. If you like what X says and what X has done, then you want X to mentor you as you go through your dilemma. You know, we still haven't reached a point, at least India, the lower middle class, has still not reached a point where they feel they can convince their parents that they want to start a company instead of taking a secure job. You know, that glass ceiling may have broken for the middle class and upper middle class. It hasn't broken for the lower middle class. And so a lot of them want that reassurance from someone who's done it and who will guide them and mentor them as they go to the next step, if they take it. How to, in fact, when I send you that stuff for Delhi schools, a large part of the questions is how do I convince my parents that I want to do this?
Nice.
Right. So that is what the dilemma that kids, at least in India today, have. And, you know, a lot of them are going to come in just to see or get inspired to see what's happening, get motivated. And I think that's the most important thing we can do. If I can create more entrepreneurs, they'll all go out and innovate. And, you know, I always tell people that don't start a company to make money. If you do that, it's never going to work, or it's unlikely to work. Never is the wrong word. Of course, the analogy I give them is money is like girls. If you chase them, they'll run away from you. But if you have a passion for what you're doing, you know, two things. One is, even if it doesn't do well or it doesn't make money, at least you're happy and satisfied that you did what you had a passion for and you made a difference to someone or something, right? So you have to have a passion, then go out and create a team, then go and do it. And, you know, if you're smart and things fall right for you, yes, why not? You will be successful.
Yeah. So, Arjun.
And telling this to young kids is, I think, very important. And so I think that's the message when you say, what is it? I think that's the message, that if you innovate, look at making a difference. And I tell them I do it selfishly because as I'm getting older, you'll make my life a lot easier to live if you come up with innovative things. So
the big reason we picked this topic and the key three areas, so future is now, global economy, food and health. And really our vision is not really, because each of these areas are really broad. So what my expectation and my goal is, we set a dialogue, or we have a dialogue where we bring people to share their views and their opinion about the future. And that help us create more entrepreneurship, more opportunities, because to me, entrepreneurship is not about setting up a company only. Entrepreneurship happens even in the larger organization. Cisco is a classic example. Google is a good example. If you look at it, all these companies was nothing. When the founders, I mean, not nothing, but the founders started with something, but the company grew tremendously because there was a lot of entrepreneurship within the organization. They were promoting, even your own organization like Headstrong, you have done brilliantly, but I guarantee you when you started it, you didn't have all those pieces in place. But when the people come in, they start innovating, they start finding problems, they start finding ways to solve the customer problem, and company grows. So big thing is that. And in reality, if I see now, especially after what is happening in the world right now, is food and health are two major issues. Food in particular, because we all know there are going to be 3 billion, 4 billion more people very soon, and food distribution is a huge issue. You and me saw the fight and things going like crazy, and people were starving, which is really sad. We had so much, but we can't feed the people. On top of that, the quality of food is a problem. And so what really we are trying to do, Arjun, is, and that I want to share with you, and I want to take your blessing, is I really want to push the envelope. My dream is that after this 2 days of conference, we create really good quality content, not just the audience. We are targeting almost 50,000 audience. I believe we may even have more than that, but I'm not really focused on audience or registration. I'm really focused on quality content and almost to the extent that we create frameworks or blueprint areas where a young entrepreneur even can start a company with $100,000, $50,000, go and create ideas in areas like food, health. And that's my dream and vision of this conference. What do you think about that?
No, I think, so just getting back to that first point, I think we at HCL in the old days sort of pioneered this concept of building entrepreneurs internally. We used to call it intrapreneurship. Intra. So so if you look at a company like NIIT, you know of NIIT.
Yeah, of course.
So way back in 1980, Pawar, who's the founder of NIIT and the chairman right now, he used to be our corporate planning manager. And there were three companies. There was HCL, there was DCM, got into computers finally, and ORG, which was Sarabhai company. And all of us were selling 200 computers in that range every year, annually, each. Pawar came up with a plan, said how we can sell 1,000 computers in 3 years. And in the plan, he said, what are the problems is where are we going to get 1,000 air conditioners? Where are we going to get 1,000 voltage stabilizers? And where are we going to get 1,000 programmers? Because, those days people used to give a certificate, but you never learned anything in programming. So he came up with a white paper saying, let's not look at the shortage of programmers as a problem. Let's look at it as an opportunity. And so he said, NIIT was the opportunity. And basically what we did was, we said, you go start it, we'll fund it, we'll take 80% of the equity, the HCL founders, and 20% is for you and your team. And, and that's how NIIT started, because we needed those programmers. If we sold computers, we needed to get them used. So we needed those programmers to get it used. But yeah, that was entrepreneurship sort of in those days.
That's an amazing example of that. I mean, what can you do with just creative thinking and looking at the problem as not a problem, looking at problem as an opportunity. I mean, that should be our key tagline for this conference, that look at problem as an opportunity, not as a problem.
So the other, the point that you made, see, for one thing, I'm a little worried about a 2-day conference. For people to sit in front of a computer for the whole day, normally an hour and a half is 2 hours is about the max. So I was thinking that we do, different people will sit in different modules, and we've got to do this in modules. And if we define 7, 8 areas or whatever, 10 areas, that healthcare, food, education, blah, 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 retail, blah, whatever. And each of these then becomes a special interest group. And over the period of the year, we follow this on with smaller conferences where we can address the problem. Let's say if you look at education, I can look at primary school, secondary school, high school, higher education, etc., etc. And each of these groups, then we have a different discussion, say once a month, where the education group gets together and puts it together. And even when the pandemic goes away and you can have these physical conferences, these things would be really useful, because people who are interested in this, and your audience will grow, because I can now because I'm talking of a topic that, let's say, professors know, I can get really senior guys from MIT, from Caltech and all, to come in and talk about this. And each one has, there are 100 views. I mean, the point is, when you look at something, everyone has a different way of how things are going to work. And our job is not to decide which one is best, but to just put them on the table and let people decide what works best for them in their environment.
Completely.
Right? I think if we do that as a plan and follow it up, we just discussed that in the Pan IIT India meeting yesterday and said that let's do it for AI. And so we're doing a conference on the 16th, and then we are hoping we'll follow it up every month with AI in agriculture, AI in this. How is it going to impact it? And talk about one other level of topic of ethics in AI. Let's get that to the table and talk about what it means, who's going to define it, and stuff like that. And if you're that far ahead of the government, at some stage they're going to listen to you, because you are probably have done more brainstorming about it than they have. And so they'll probably take some of your templates, if I describe it that way, or your frameworks, and use that for their kind of work. So that is what we are thinking of doing on AI in India, right? The other thing we were thinking was the IITs, for example, need faculty enhancement. They can't find people. A lot of PhDs in the US are not getting jobs courtesy of this whole Trump, blah, blah, blah. So what we are thinking is I'll talk to some of these PhDs and say, are you willing to come and work and do AI work in agricultural engineering? I'll connect you to the agricultural engineering department at IIT Kharagpur. You come in there as a postdoctoral scholar, work with them and see what similarly mining, look at different verticals or departments and see if people can work with them to provide solutions. That will help the IITs become more industry specific, get those people. The traditional mining engineer gets more consulting because now he's providing an AI type solution for that industry. So just thinking, just ideas that came up. And I think some of those, hopefully we have to put this, we have an opportunity now to put it together without calling bunches of people in and stuff like that. And
so, yeah, perfect. So Arjun, the idea is the way we have formatted everything, it's almost like that. It looks like a 2 days conference. Essentially, it is 4 2-hour sessions. Actually, it's only 90-minute session. And what we are doing it is, because there were a lot of things and between you and me that a lot of people wants to be on the podium, right? And a lot of speakers are there. So we don't want to say no, and they have great content. But the core part of the session or conferences, we are saying it main stage. On main stage, we are going to have almost 100 minutes of session on global economy. Then there is a half an hour break. And then we have 100 minutes of session on health. And then following day, we have 2 sessions like that. So essentially the core is this. All other things, if you see, you will see the agenda. It looks really broad, a lot of things. But that's all really around promoting our IIT alumni funded companies or startups. Because what I'm really looking at is creating an environment where these startups have a platform. The big thing I see it, even I myself was involved. In fact, when you were talking about e-learning, I've lost so much money, it's crazy. There is a company called Vritti. We raised almost $14 million in India, but we were too early and the company is pretty much gone now. So the challenge is a lot of these startups have amazing ideas, but they don't have a platform to showcase what they can do. So that is what really transpired that. Now coming back to AI, I am personally involved in for last 4+ years in AI, and specifically its application in retail. And we work with some very large alcohol brands and some major retailers like Kellogg's and all, really understanding the retail environment, like a shop, how it works, how the product is moving and all. The complexities are immense. So I completely agree with you that this is a seed. What I'm really hoping to accomplish is this is just a seed we are planting. How this seed is going to evolve will all depend on how many people we are able to inspire. So these 4 sessions, so one is around mostly AI and really cutting edge technology. In fact, I'm trying to get, if you know, somebody from Virgin Space, if you know anyone there, because it's really about what is future, where are we going? Because we all know these basic opportunities, right? I'm calling it basic, like even using AI for farming, to me it's basic because I live in Silicon Valley. I understand in India it is still a big theme, but I want to talk about the kind of drone we are going to put in space, not a space thing. It's like a drone. I make it in my house and I can ship it up there and do something with that. And there are a lot of work happening, especially predicting microclimate. When we talk about even food, farming, microclimate has such a huge role. We are not able to do that. Or creating things which can take care of tons of other problems farming has. Using electronics instead of using pesticides. We both know with the sound, with the frequency, there is so much we can do to create better quality production. So that is what I'm thinking. If you can help me find some people who are really kind of thinkers, who want to really, they're really pushing the envelope. They wanted to talk about, okay, this is great. If you can understand it, I'm not here. If you can't understand it, I am going to plant a seed that what is possible.
Sure, I can do that, but I just wanted to, as we talk about the conference, let's say you did 100 minutes of health.
Yes, sir.
Right. I would suggest that we set up a quote unquote a small editorial board, if I use that term, and a blog, because people will have questions that you won't be able to answer in 100 minutes.
I should make notes. Swati, are you making notes?
So if we capture those questions and set up a blog with an editorial board, then we can ask people to answer that, and it becomes a thing that, it's a forum that people will use all the time. And there'll be a lot of knowledge and information that will go, and it'll not just go to the person who asked the question, it'll go to anyone who looks at that blog.
Perfect, perfect. Brilliant idea.
Each of the interest areas, if we can set those up, those will be really useful. And we can have a good editorial board. It doesn't have to be only IITians. Yeah. The other thing is there's you know of IIT startups. You've talked to them. Mm-hmm. Okay. So obviously they're doing some very interesting work in this area. And Manishi Sanyal, Manoj Goyal.
Manishi, I talk to him often. He's an amazing guy. Really, really great guy.
So I've known Manishi since I have 3 years. Since he attended my 3rd birthday party. So let's put it that way.
I don't know that. I don't know that. That's a small word. I know Manishi from 2004.
Okay. When he did the IIT 50, as it was called.
Yeah, after that, actually. After the first conference with the Bill Gates. After that.
Yeah. Okay.
And especially when I was a co-chair of 2007 event. So that's the time I get to work with him. Yeah, he's always after me to sell my company. I say, I don't have any company, Manishi. Yeah, now I'm lucky. So one last question I have. We are at the end of 5 more minutes we have. What are the 5 key takeaways you have for our audience? What you really want them to do or think?
Yeah, so the first thing is, again, as I mentioned, you've got to have a passion for what you're doing. If you want to be an entrepreneur, you want to do something, it has to come from passion. It has to come from within. You must want to change the world in some way. You've got to, number 1. Number 2, try and work with people who are smarter than you, And I keep telling people that they do exist. They're out there. You've got to go and find them. And if you do get them, then please listen to them. Don't just get smart people and not listen to them, right? I think those are, and the third thing I tell people when they grow is that, don't think of an IPO as the end of the world. An IPO is like getting married. The real problems start after that. So enjoy it till you have an IPO, basically, right? Just that. And, how do I put it? I keep telling kids this also. When you look at something, I used to get into trouble when I joined DCM. We used to go to all the plants and we had to give a daily diary that I saw this, I saw this, I saw that. I mean, I used to find it stupid to write I saw because everyone knows what you saw. I mean, you're not going to see something that's not there. So I used to try and write about, why are they doing it this way? Why can't they do it in this way? Won't it be more efficient? And I used to get into trouble, said, well, you're straight out of college. What are you trying? These people have been doing it for 20 years, over 50 years. What are you trying to tell them? And at that time I used to feel, why am I trying to tell them anything? And now I realize that because you're in the forest, you don't see the trees. Whereas someone coming from the outside can actually look at it differently. Now, maybe 90% of the thoughts I had were crazy. I'm willing to accept that. But the 10% that weren't, that could have made a change if you listen to it, right? And that's what I tell young people, that when you see something, don't give me the description. Tell me how you can change it, and hopefully for the better. So start thinking that way. Start thinking of how things can become better. Just start with when you get up in the morning, you've got to brush your teeth. You take 15 minutes to get ready. Can I make it 14? Can I make it 13? What do I have to do? What's the process I have to follow? Can I do some things together simultaneously that will help me save that time? Just think of a simple thing like that, because those
mundane
transactions, yeah. And if your mind thinks that way, you're going to actually do really well, because you'll always think of how to solve problems, how to solve them more efficiently, rather than just accepting them because they're there. And the other thing is, look, if you're going to be an entrepreneur, remember in your mindset, nothing is impossible. Yes, obviously you have to, within certain norms like the law and all that, I mean, you have to be honest, you have to bear all that stuff. But in a way, and the best example I can give, then I'll take a minute or two. When we made our first 8-bit machine, the HCL 8C, actually, we didn't realize it at that time that in India, we came out with it the same day and month as which Apple One came out in the US. So we were ready. The way it worked was you took a 30% advance because that covered your bill of materials. And then you called the buyer or the customer to the factory, you showed him the machine, he gave you a check for 70%, then you packed the machine and shipped it. Now, our first customer came, he liked it, he saw it, we were packing it, and we were ready to ship when someone in the factory, I forget who, came and said, have you paid your excise? And so we looked at the guy and said, what's excise? He said, there's a production tax in India that if you ever produce something, you got to pay a tax. And so we said, okay. So we called the excise inspector and we said, here, this is a microcomputer, mini computer, microprocessor based. Here, what do we description here? Tell me, how do I pay excise? Is it ad valorem, which is X% of the sale price? Or is it transformers used to be 4 annas by kilo, by weight? So which is the way I pay excise? So he looked through the whole book and he could find no classification for microcomputer, mini computer, anything. So he said, look, I can't tell you because I don't have your classification here. So then what do? We got to ship the machine. So he said, you write a letter to your administrative ministry. They will write a letter to the finance ministry, who will then give a notification on which basis we can do this. I said, you crazy, I want the machine to go, it's packed. You're saying the ministry take 4 or 5 months. He said, no, this is revenue generating for the government. They'll do it in 1 day. So we said, okay. So we fixed an appointment. Department of Electronics had just come up, I still remember, because electronics was supposed to be the future. And we used to work half days, Saturdays. First and third Saturdays were off, but the other Saturdays were half days. So it was a Saturday, I forget which Saturday. We went and did a whole presentation to Department of Electronics. Basically said, now please write a letter to the finance ministry. What we were told was that the microprocessor policy has still not been decided. We expect it to take 4 years. So please come back 4 years later, and then we'll write the letter to finance. Think about it. You've made computers, you've got customers, really depressing. So we all decided, let's take the excise manual back home and let's see what we can. And so one of the things India used to do in those days was import substitution was very big because dollars were in real short supply. And so we used to import something called a electromechanical accounting invoicing machine from East Germany, a company called Robotron. And there was a photograph of this. There was a table with a printer, a keyboard, and a small display. And that was the electromechanical accounting invoicing machine. So we called the excise inspector, showed him the photograph in his excise manual, showed him our computer and said, he said, it's the same thing. So for 4 years, we actually cleared our computers out as accounting invoicing machines. We even sold one to Department of Electronics. That microprocessor policy did take 4 years. But, so I always give that example as, hey, don't accept anything as impossible. There is a solution. If you look for it, you'll find it.
No, Arjun, I use a word when I talk to my team and my friends. I'm coined it amplified curiosity. So what I'm saying, what that means by that is if you're not curious, that is a problem. But the big challenge in today's world is there's so much information out there. And if you try to be just curious and accumulate hundreds of things, you will not get anywhere. So you have to pick an area. You should be curious about that and then really go after it to find opportunities, to find problems, and then create a solution around it, whether it is AI in farming or it's an education disruption, because you and me both know our education is going to be disrupted no matter what we do, no matter what IITs do. They have to evolve into a different kind of organization. And my dream is all the IITs will evolve into more of a research institution. There is a huge plethora of opportunities. In fact, I personally feel that there should be a new IIT around automobile. We have a new kind of cars. We need new engines, new batteries, everything new. There is nothing out there, even globally, which surprises me. And Tesla has open source everything literally. If we can take that, create a curriculum, every single person in India, literally Mahindra to Ashoka Leland to everyone can make amazing cars. Exactly the story of what you are telling me, where you open an IIT just to get these people. We really need, same thing when we talk about pharma. India is still producing not the kind of drug we're producing. There's so much out there. There's so much R&D can do, but we are not doing it. And because the problem is everybody is doing a small bit. If we have a centralized infrastructure, and that is where I personally believe IITs can change the world. But that's,
yeah, but the government is going the other way. So all the IITs that have land, like Kharagpur, is being asked to become a full university. So Kharagpur will be opening a medical college shortly. It should have been opened. COVID might delay it. We've already got a law school. And now the only other thing that's pending to become a full university is the natural sciences, basic sciences. They have departments, but you've got to expand them. But that's what they're doing. And that's why the student population from my time was 2,500. It's up to 12,500 now. And they want to take it to 25,000. So, it's a little different. Unfortunately, what's happened is the brand name is so strong that they want to now leverage it in a certain way. And, one of the things at least in India, we're trying to fight very hard is to try and how do we retain the brand? How do we make sure that the quality of people coming, at least the student coming in, that the JEE stays the way it is, and you just don't start compromising on the JEE in terms of, hey, I'll do interviews, I do this. So yeah, there's some of these issues, but yeah, the IITs are also known. I was surprised. I'd gone to this nano conference many years ago, and one of the, I'll get his name, I forget it, but one of the leaders in nano, he came to me and said, oh, you're from IIT Kharagpur. I'm very impressed with them. I said, why? He said they were the first institution in the world to have an interdisciplinary center. We had a material science center at Kharagpur when I was there, right? He said that was probably the first in the world. And I thought to myself, even IIT doesn't know that. Right?
We do a good job of branding, Arjun. That I agree. And on the same note, I just become the president of IIT Delhi Excellence Foundation too. And I just found out they have an amazing food institute, even a lab where they can formulate. And I'm so passionate about food. In fact, I'm working with a major agency here. It's an organization helping me formulate some specific product, which I believe is going to be the future. But I was shocked that they were telling me that IIT Delhi has that. So we are doing a very poor job of really bringing this information to the world. There's so much we can do with IITs today is phenomenal. I was talking to Professor Rao there. Such an amazing work IITs are doing. Kharagpur has done phenomenal work. Ron shared with me what you are doing with, especially even COVID-19 and the initiative around COVID-19. It's amazing.
No, IIT Delhi has their biotechnology center is doing some very, very good work. In fact, we use them as consultants for a lot of people. We want to go and say, go talk to them and get their tick mark if you really feel that this is a product that will go out. So IIT they don't know how to market. They don't know how to market it. They don't know how to put it out. The other problem IITs are facing is the Kharagpur, I can give the numbers. 40% of their staff indents are not fulfilled. Now the student numbers are going up. And so all the staff who are supposed to do research are stuck in teaching because they have no time for research. Yeah. Right. So it's a huge problem. And we're trying to get them to take postdoctoral scholars and stuff, but their system doesn't allow it. It's like the bureaucracy is so crazy. It is crazy. There's the IIT Kharagpur alumni, one of our first PhDs, who's the patent holder for the LASIK laser, the eye surgery.
Yeah, I remember the guy name. We featured him.
Mani Bhaumik, Dr. Mani Bhaumik.
Yeah, Dr. Mani Bhaumik, yeah.
So he was given land by the government of Bengal in Calcutta, 15 acres of land, which he wants to give to IIT Kharagpur to set up a world-class research institute. The value of the land today is 1,000 crores. Right. Government of West Bengal is asking IIT to pay stamp duty. So we are telling IIT, you take over the trust. It's been 6 years. IIT has not found a way to take over that land.
Wow.
This guy is 87, 88 years old. Okay. So what he has done is he's now made me a trustee on his trust, so that he says something happens to me, at least you'll make sure that, what I want to do with the land gets done. But that's not the way life should be. It's just crazy. So
it's a waste of resources and waste of time. I mean, living in America, especially in Silicon Valley, it's like you and me think very differently. It's just 6 years, I can build a company, either go public or close the company and do something else.
Yep.
We don't even have a land.
Now I'm trying to use a little bit of political pressure on Mamta ji in Calcutta to say, just let IIT take it without paying stamp duty. Why do you want them to pay 30, 40 crores, whatever the stamp duty is?
It's a non-profit.
Yeah, it's good for Bengal. You'll set up a research center there. I mean, what is your problem? But yeah, whatever.
Anyway, that's better. But
I better run. Yeah.
I want to really thank you. This is so amazing. And I was trying to reach out to you for the last few weeks. Of course, this we are going to use a part of this conversation for our PR. But if there is any piece of advice or wisdom for me, please share with me. And please do keep sharing with me the things. I'm reading the article you have sent me. It's really, really beautiful. If you don't mind, I would like to take the pieces of it and use it in our social media marketing.
Sure.
Thank you.
Sure. And I will send you some of these talks. Plus, I'd given a talk at the Computer History Museum. They wanted to capture the history of the Indian IT industry. So I'll send you all those links. You'll probably cloud up your inbox for a while, but
no, it's great, Arjun. I need more because we don't have great content, and I'm looking for more people to talk to really understand. And basically, the ideas are two. One is get to know them a little bit, share their information with our audience, because we are targeting 50,000, which is a large number. We need a lot more content, and really understand what is their expectation from IIT 2020, because Ron has done an amazing work and he has developed this beautiful content. We have amazing speaker lined up, but still we can give them information. We can still do some tweaking. As you are saying, is don't keep like long 2 days. So absolutely, I completely agree. We'll try to keep very, very structured format, smaller bites, so people are not up whole night. If they don't want to, if they want to be up only for 90 minutes, perfect.
So the other thing I wanted to mention was, if you just go to the original 5, 6, 7, Roorkee, BHU included, and Guwahati now, and look at their distinguished alumni list. It'll be on their websites. And if you get Swati to put it together, just send it to me. I might know some of those people, and I'd be very happy to connect them to you.
Perfect.
And the second thing, I know Kharagpur has Young Achiever Award that they give. If we can find other people have them, let's identify these young achievers and have them become a part of the fund, because they are the ones that are going to be more relevant to people from tomorrow. We are pretty much dinosaurs in some way, but yeah. So you can pull that out. Swati can do it. I'm happy to write to every one of the Kharagpur alums using my alum combination and say, hey, get involved or whatever we want them to do. And I probably know some of the people in the other IITs, the DAs at least, but find some senior alums from the other IITs and get them to open up those doors with the young achievers and people like that. And hopefully then you'll have a much bigger universe from whom to select and what to do. And you can then do all the follow-on things that we plan post-conference will become much easier.
Absolutely. And Arjun, that's the plan. We want to do a long term. This is just the planting the seed. Goal is, Ron gave me this charter that next 1 year we should plan what we are going to do. In fact, that's the reason he has stopped after the next event. He's not doing any other monthly conference. And we will wait till December and then we will start again. That's the whole idea around it. So we are looking for ideas.
One more thing, you're talking to Krishan Dhar in Delhi, in India. So Pan IIT India, Krishan Dhar is now the new chairman of Pan IIT India.
Got it.
So whatever, you're talking to Pan IIT India, whoever you're talking to. Right? You're coordinating with them.
Somebody else is doing it, but I will reach out to him. I don't know. I'm supposed to talk to him?
No, he's the now new chair of Pan IIT India. Krishnadhar IIT Delhi 71.
Oh, yeah.
Whatever.
Sanjiv, we are already talking.
You're coordinating with Pan IIT India. That's correct.
Perfect.
Yeah. Sanjiv, we are in touch. Arun is in touch.
Thank you.
Yeah, good. I just wanted to mention that Ashank Desai was the person and is still in touch with Pan IIT alumni in the rest of the world. So we have chapters in Canada, UK, Singapore, Australia, Japan,
Korea.
And so it might be a good idea to get them involved in this too, because we're calling it a global conference. All the Pan IIT alumni in different countries, and I'll make a note. I'll get Ashank connected to you.
That is in the works. That is in the works, Arjun.
Okay.
Swati, let's get some email from Arjun to help us.
Yeah, because I used to coordinate the rest of the world at one time. So and Ashank took it over. So I'll get that done. Okay.
So Arjun, can I ask a controversial question?
Sure.
So there is an organization called IIT Council. I'm hearing a lot about them. Do you have any idea about them?
Yes. So India has gone legal with them. They are a fraud organization. There's this guy, Sanjiv Mehta, I think he's the IIT Kanpur alum.
Satish Mehta.
IIT Kanpur alum, and basically what he's done, he claims that he organized Howdy Modi.
Anybody who is an IITian is my friend. I am going to fold my hands and ask for their help. Doesn't matter who they are, as long as they're IITian. The key question I ask for is because I know some of the people in IIT Council. I wanted to make sure that I respect them as an IITian. Absolutely, I will do that. But as a council, we will not be able to recognize them, and that will be my stand. And that's all I wanted to know. That's all.
Absolutely, I fully agree with you. As an IITian, they are part of the alum. There's nothing you or I can change about it. But by using the IIT name in a way it's not supposed to be used, they are doing something that's not okay. And yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate it. Thanks, Arjun. I'm going to bother you again, but this is great. Thank you.